Before I could scream, he yanked me back. Fear and confusion were racing through my body, and I started feeling lightheaded. Is this really happening? I asked myself. Moments earlier, I thought it was just going to be an ordinary morning going to summer school. When I was 15 years old, it was a typical day of summer school in June 2022. I was a sophomore going into my junior year. I got out of bed, got ready for school, and rushed out the door, already running late. Since my parents had to work, I had to take the bus, which never bothered me. I had already done it plenty of times before. The only downside was that after getting off, I still had a 10-minute walk to school. My parents always taught me to be aware of my surroundings and to never walk with both earphones on. That day, I kept one in while staying on the phone with my friend. She knew I was running late and there would not be as many kids around. Anything could happen, she told me. As I walked, I noticed a man ahead. I felt an odd feeling, a cold sweat, as the grip on my phone tightened. Should I cross onto the other side of the sidewalk? I asked myself. I was skeptical because the area was Paradise Hills, a neighborhood known for its crime incidents. I would always hear people talk about people getting killed or even kidnapped there. Despite my instincts warning me, I tend to overthink things too much. I quickly let go of that thought. It is broad daylight. This is an open neighborhood. Would he dare to do something? He was also near a truck, which appeared to me that he was fixing it up. I reassured myself that he meant no harm, so I kept walking. The moment I moved past him, everything changed. He grabbed me from behind. In such an instant, his hand over my mouth. Panic surged through me. I tried to scream, but the sound was muffled. He then threw me onto the concrete floor, but because I had my backpack on, I barely felt the pain. Before I could process even more about what was happening, he climbed on top of me, trying to drag me towards his truck, but he struggled. It was a dark gray pickup, just parked on the sidewalk. He wore a white long-sleeved shirt, black jeans, heavy black boots, and a ski mask that hid everything but the darkness he held inside him. Despite his weight being twice as much as mine, easily 200 pounds compared to my 99, he could not get a firm grip on me, which I did use to my advantage. In situations like these, most girls freeze, paralyzed by fear, too shocked to even react, but not me. Adrenaline was running through my veins. My body was igniting to try and fight despite the fear I felt. I kicked, thrashed, and did everything I could to set myself free. Staying still was not an option. Seconds later, though, he pulled out a stun taser, and my heart dropped. He pressed it to my heart, and although I thought it would pulverize my whole body, to my surprise, it did not. It was painful, but not as much as I had feared. As soon as he had seen that he did not incapacitate me, he pulled out a cloth with an unforgettable smell of chemicals and pressed it over my nose and mouth. I knew he was trying to put me to sleep. Instinctively, I held my breath, knowing that if I held it for too long, I could suffocate. I had never struggled with suicidal thoughts, but in that moment of fear, I felt willing to die rather than to be taken away. Only God knows what he could have done with me. I slowly found myself losing my breath and felt my soul slowly lifting from my body. It was such an indescribable feeling, but I could not believe what was happening. I genuinely thought my life was going to end there. Unexpectedly, he takes off the cloth from my face, and as I try to catch my breath, I feel his body weight lighter. I then feel the urge to just kick him off me, so I do. As soon as he got off me, I got up so fast that I left everything behind. My phone, my earphones, and even my sandals. I ran with my life and went barefoot to school. Since I was on the phone with my friend, she heard everything on the phone, including my screams, so she had already told the school that something had happened to me. The school was already waiting for me to arrive. Yes, the school was waiting for me to arrive instead of looking for me. I was in shock when I walked into the school office. Everyone was looking at me with such pity. My friend started crying and she hugged me. Since I was in so much shock, I did not fully process what I was feeling. The school then called 911. When they arrived, the paramedics sat me down. They asked a few questions. Do you know who you are, where you are, how old are you, and today's date? I was so confused, but I answered them correctly. Then the paramedics laid me down on one of their beds and put me in the ambulance. Since I was tased right in my heart, I had to go directly to the emergency room. As soon as I got into the ambulance, which was in the school parking lot, the detective was trying to ask me a lot of questions. Questions like, what did the guy look like, his height, questions of describing the man and the situation. Honestly, in that moment, I could not even think straight since everything had happened so fast. The detective probably spent 40 minutes asking me questions. The paramedics were starting to get upset because I needed to be rushed to the hospital due to my taser burn. The paramedic told the detective that he could finish asking his questions at the hospital, and so he did. When I finally left, the feeling of being in the ambulance was such a bittersweet feeling. It is bitter because I had to be in it, but sweet because I knew that I was safe now. When I arrived at the hospital, my parents were already waiting for me. I remember seeing my mom break down into pieces as soon as she saw me, and that was when I started crying. That was when it all hit me. I broke down, but at least I knew I had my parents with me. When they brought me into the emergency room, once again, I saw the nurses, doctors, workers looking at me with that same expression, with pity. I was in the emergency room for about 4 hours, but at last, I was okay. The doctor checked me and told me I was going to be fine. I remember that during those 4 hours, I was just sitting up looking at the wall in front of me in a whole different world, and I was in shock, though I was grateful that I escaped. After all of that happened, and as time passed, I tried convincing myself that it was not going to affect me mentally, and I never wanted to believe that it would create trauma, which is why I also denied going to therapy at first. At first, I was the type of person who never believed in therapy. I do not believe in it because I know a lot of people who have been in therapy and they have always said it was a waste of time. But then I started noticing changes within myself. My head kept constantly reminding me about those flashbacks, and then eventually I reached my breaking point. I realized that it had affected me, so I decided to try therapy, despite what I would hear about it, which helped me. In therapy, I was diagnosed with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. At first, talking about what happened was overwhelming, but my therapist created a safe space for me where I was able to process it. I realized that the more I acknowledged my trauma, the less power it had over me. I also learned to remind myself that yes, that did happen and it was terrifying, but I am safe now. It is okay to move forward. Another part of my healing, and probably the main part of my healing, came from my faith. I don't share this to convince anyone of anything, but turning to God gave me comfort during the darkest moments. I was raised Catholic and went to church every Sunday, but I never felt a deep connection to God until after the incident. My parents told the leaders of a 4-day religious retreat what I had gone through, and even though it was meant for adults, they made an exception for me. The retreat was intense. No phones, no clocks, just silence, prayer, and time with God. It was there that I truly felt His presence for the first time. I left that retreat feeling free, no longer alone, and filled with the peace I hadn't felt in a long time. That moment helped me begin to forgive, not for him, but for myself, so I could move forward. Therapy continued to help me, especially with the things I didn't know how to say out loud, and even helped my ability to trust men again. But it was the retreat that truly began my healing. Unfortunately, they never caught the man who tried to kidnap me, and sometimes I wonder what I'd do if I ever saw him again. I never saw his full face, but his eyes. His eyes are unforgettable and haunting. I'd say they're scarred into my photographic memory. But for a long time, fear followed me everywhere. I couldn't even walk my dogs without looking over my shoulder every second. I couldn't pass a man on the street without panicking. Even something as simple as taking the bus felt terrifying. Now I can walk through my neighborhood with confidence. I can take public transportation in peace. I can live my life without that feeling of fear always tied around me. Don't get me wrong, the trauma is still there. It lives with me like a shadow, but here's the difference. I've learned to live with it, carry it, and grow from it. When I face challenges now, for example in school or life in general, and I want to give up, I remind myself of one thing. I escaped an attempt to kidnap me, and I survived that. Although this experience broke me a little bit, it made me stronger. I rose from it, and I am proud of where I am right now. Thank you.